And you see right away what's in the back of the mind of Annas. Notice that he doesn't go to the point of the issue. The issue should have been, what is Jesus teaching? But he says first he asks of his disciples. Like all politicians, what's he concerned about? He's concerned about numbers. He's concerned about, I want to know about your followers. I want to know about your disciples, and then your teaching. That's backwards, isn't it? Because if his teaching is true, it doesn't matter how many followers you have. If his teaching is false, then he has to be dealt with. But he's concerned about the numbers. Then later, after that, Jesus is popular, and that's what they're most concerned about. That all these people were being won to Jesus, and he was criticizing the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the leadership of Israel. And you see the arrogance here. He acts as if he doesn't know anything about Jesus. He's above Jesus. I want to know about your disciples and the things that you teach. He knew all about them. They've been stalking Jesus. They've been sending people to hear him speak all the time, trying to catch him in something. They've been sending the scribes and the lawyers to try to trip him up, to try to get him to say things that are contrary to the Word of God. And every time they went away defeated, every time they went away confounded, every time they went back and said, remember what they said the last time they sent people to arrest him? They said, we never heard a man speak the way this man speaks. But what's he interested in? His disciples. Annas is looking for anything that he can get to use against Jesus. That's what this whole preliminary hearing is about. He's looking for something that he can pass on to his son-in-law and says, get him here. When you get him in front of the Sanhedrin, you can nail him with this. And I know when you read it, maybe you read it and think, boy, Jesus is a little bit harsh with him. He says, I'm not going to answer you. Ask your witnesses. See, what Jesus was really doing was he was trying to he says, what you're doing here is illegal. What's legal is there shouldn't even be a hearing. See, when they brought a man before the court, if there could not be any kind of witnesses brought together who agreed completely, the case never came to court. He says, listen, one of the tenets of the Jewish system is that a man was not forced to testify against himself. Jesus is simply saying, I was openly out there every day preaching and teaching. He's even actually helping him out. He says, witnesses, if you're going to run this thing according to the law of the Jewish system is, you need to bring witnesses. That should be easy. There's no secret teaching of Jesus. Don't fall into that old agnostic teaching, that old Gnostic teaching that says, there's the secrets of Jesus and the secrets of the... Jesus says there are no secrets. I taught openly. Sometimes buried in these things are such important little statements, he said. Jesus said, I spake openly, not to the Jews, not to the nation. He says, I spoke openly to the world. See what Jesus is concerned about? He said, I preach to the world for all to hear. There's no secret, deeper knowledge about Jesus. He says, listen, this isn't any kind of secret society. I'm not the head of some secret revolutionary group here. What I speak for the whole world. The witnesses should be a dime a dozen. Where are your witnesses? Jesus was just pointing out his legal rights. He didn't have to testify against himself. There shouldn't be any need for it. Just ask other people what I've said. It's open for all to hear. Notice he doesn't even answer the question about his disciples. Remember when Jesus got arrested, Jesus said, take me, leave these others go, for his inner circle. Now he wants to know about disciples. Jesus is ever protecting us, folks. Jesus is ever protecting his people. Because to get the full impact of this, you have to understand what the Greek says. Because Jesus, look, 3 times in verse 20, he talks about I. And in the Greek, he uses the emphatic I. I on my part. I, me. Keeping the focus on himself. He's saying, forget about the disciples. I spoke openly to the world. I, on my part, taught in the synagogues. And in secret, I, on my part, I've said nothing that's secret. And so, there's great lessons here. And actually that word, he says, I spoke openly to the world. That word often is translated from the Greek boldly. He spoke openly and boldly. See, the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ should be spoken openly, right? And boldly. Even as Jesus did, our great example. And he protected his disciples. And he just is reminding Annas here of the fact that he had no right to ask anything without witnesses. And this whole thing was illegal. To try to get Jesus to testify against himself. And what does it get for him? An assault. You see, you're ever going to have those people in the world like this official that was standing nearby. It says, and when he had thus spoken, one of the officers, one of the rent-a-cops, you always got people, you always got the rent-a-cops, I shouldn't say. I hope, are anybody here fire policemen? Oh man, you give them a little authority and it goes right to their head. If you're a fire policeman, I know you're not like that. We've all run into them though, right? So here he has this minor official who stands by and he sees, you know why he slaps him? Because he sees Annas is in a pickle. He sees that this man is caught. He's been caught in Jesus has put him right in his place. But he sees an opportunity, right? So he reaches out and cracks Jesus across the face. And the word in the Greek there, it says that he flayed him. I mean, he hauled off and hit him with an open hand. This was a term that was used for an open hand, but as hard as he could, to the point that it said, that in the Greek it says that it put a contusion upon his face. To which Jesus responds, listen, if I've done something wrong, where are your witnesses? And if I haven't done anything wrong, why are you assaulting me? And any kind of judge in any court, if you go into a judge, how would you like to go before a judge and they're beating up the witnesses? I mean, we don't let them waterboard terrorists. But Jesus is getting slapped, and he says, and the judge doesn't say, oh, we don't do that here. We're a civilized society. The Jews thought they were. See, to get all the illegalities of this, you'd have to go back and study Talmud and all these writings of the Jewish and the Mishnah and all the oral traditions. But you know what the Jewish leaders wrote about the Sanhedrin? They wrote down, if there is more than one death penalty in 7 years, the Sanhedrin has become a slaughterhouse. See, they did everything they could not to pass the death sentence, or they were supposed to. Not on this occasion. They're bloodthirsty. They're looking only, this thing is not even a trial. It's an execution. And so, Jesus takes a beating and an assault, actually. But what's the outcome? Nothing is gained. Annas knows, I'm not going to get anything from this guy. He's been put into a corner, so it says that, he is bound and sent to the Sanhedrin and to Caiaphas. That's the first part of this trial. And it moves to the trial proper. And I think we'll pick that up. I have to keep moving here because I have a lot of stuff and I want to get through this today. But if you go to Mark chapter 14. Let's do it in Mark. Mark and Matthew are almost word for word the same. But you can compare these. But these are the accounts then as he goes to the Sanhedrin. Now, the Sanhedrin has been assembled illegally at night. Caiaphas is there. It's late night now. And I turn to Mark chapter 14.